Free will is a concept that has captivated philosophers, theologians, and scientists for centuries, yet its reality is far more complicated than we are taught. We like to believe that our choices are entirely our own, that each decision is an expression of our independent reasoning and personal values. But the truth is more unsettling. Much of what we perceive as conscious choice is shaped, constrained, and even predetermined by forces we barely recognize: biological, psychological, social, and cultural. The illusion of free will is so convincing precisely because it feels real. It feels intimate, immediate, and unquestionably ours. Yet behind this sensation lies a labyrinth of influences that subtly guide, limit, and sometimes dictate our decisions. Why do we act as if we are free when so much of our behavior is orchestrated by forces beyond awareness? Why do feelings of autonomy persist even in the face of overwhelming conditioning, habit, and neural circuitry? And most importantly, what does it mean for our understanding of responsibility, morality, and selfhood if our choices are not truly independent? By exploring these questions, we uncover the mechanics behind decision-making, the psychology of influence, and the philosophical paradoxes that challenge the very notion of personal freedom. By the end of this video, you will gain a deeper appreciation of how free will functions as an experience rather than a fact, and how this understanding can radically alter how you view your actions, your relationships, and your life. Philosophically, thinkers have long grappled with the tension between freedom and determinism. Nietzsche suggested that what we call choice is often the expression of underlying drives, instincts, and social conditioning, while Kant argued that the human mind interprets reality through structures that limit genuine independence. In the 20th century, existentialists like Sartre emphasized that freedom is experienced but comes with profound responsibility. Even if the scope of choice is constrained, the meaning we assign to our decisions is ours to define. The illusion is not simply a trick of perception. It is a complex interplay between constrained mechanisms and conscious interpretation. Psychologically, the illusion is reinforced by cognitive architecture. Neuroscience demonstrates that much of our decision-making occurs at a subconscious level before we are consciously aware of it. Experiments, such as those by Benjamin Libet, reveal that neural activity indicating a decision can be detected milliseconds before the individual becomes aware of having made the choice. Habits, biases, emotional impulses, and environmental cues shape decisions even when the mind believes it is acting autonomously. The prefrontal cortex may guide deliberation, but it operates within the bounds of ingrained neural patterns and prior conditioning. Emotionally, this awareness can be unsettling. We pride ourselves on being independent agents, capable of intentional action and self-determination. Discovering that much of our behavior is influenced by factors beyond conscious control challenges this self-image. Yet this realization need not be paralyzing. It can foster humility, self-reflection, and a deeper understanding of human nature. Recognizing the mechanisms that shape our choices allows us to engage with life more intentionally, even within the constraints of our biology, psychology, and environment. Socially, the illusion of free will is reinforced through norms, laws, and moral expectations. Culture shapes behavior, rewarding conformity in some contexts and punishing deviation in others. Socialization, authority, and the desire for acceptance subtly guide decision-making, creating the impression of free choice while simultaneously channeling behavior toward predictable outcomes. Even the sense of rebellion or independence is shaped by social and psychological structures. What feels like autonomy is often a response to the boundaries imposed by others. Narratively, the consequences of this illusion are everywhere. From the compulsive behaviors driven by habit to the choices subtly manipulated by social influence, the human experience is governed by patterns that are largely invisible. Consider the entrepreneur whose decisions seem bold and independent, yet are influenced by upbringing, education, and cultural expectations. Or the individual choosing a partner, a career, or a lifestyle, only to realize later how much their preference was shaped by societal norms, personal insecurities, and subconscious patterns. Psychology, neuroscience, and philosophy all converge on a single insight. Freedom is experienced but rarely absolute. Cognitively, awareness of these constraints can be transformative. By understanding the forces that shape decisions, from biases to habits to social pressures, we gain the ability to design environments, routines, and practices that maximize intentionality. Mindfulness, reflective journaling, and critical self-inquiry reveal the hidden influences behind choices, providing a space where what seems automatic can be examined and, in some cases, adjusted. While free will may be an illusion, awareness grants a practical leverage, the capacity to act within constraints with greater purpose and insight. Ultimately, the illusion of free will does not absolve us from responsibility, nor does it strip life of meaning. Rather, it reframes the terrain of human action. We are not entirely free, yet not entirely determined. We are influenced, constrained, and shaped, yet we retain the power to interpret, respond, and act with intention. Subscribing allows you to continue exploring these hidden forces, understanding how to navigate life's subtle influences, and cultivating the awareness necessary to act with integrity, even in a world where autonomy is never absolute. The essential question is this: if free will is an experience, not a fact, how will you choose to wield it? The illusion of free will becomes even more striking when we examine the mechanisms hidden beneath consciousness. Decisions that feel spontaneous, deliberate, and uniquely ours are often orchestrated by processes that operate without awareness. Neuroscience shows that the brain initiates action milliseconds, sometimes even seconds, before the conscious mind registers the choice. What we experience as volitional control is often a narrative constructed after the fact, a story the conscious mind tells itself to preserve the illusion of autonomy. Psychologically, the subconscious exerts an enormous influence over behavior. Cognitive biases distort perception and judgment, nudging us toward choices that feel rational but are actually pre-programmed by prior experience. The availability heuristic, confirmation bias, and loss aversion all shape decision-making in ways we rarely recognize. Habits, too, are automatic routines that free the conscious mind from repetitive effort, but they also constrain choice. The same neural pathways are activated repeatedly, making certain behaviors easier and others increasingly difficult. In essence, the mind is predisposed to act along established tracks, and the sense of free choice is more impression than reality. Emotionally, the influence of subconscious drives can be destabilizing if unacknowledged. Desire, fear, attachment, and avoidance often operate beneath awareness, guiding decisions in ways that feel entirely rational. We fall in love, pursue success, or make moral choices, believing them to be purely intentional, when in reality emotions and unconscious motivations are shaping the outcome. Recognizing these patterns can be unsettling, as it challenges the comforting narrative of being the master of one's own destiny. Yet the very act of recognition creates space for intentional intervention, allowing us to navigate life with greater clarity and purpose. Social conditioning further entrenches the illusion. From childhood, humans are immersed in systems of influence. Family, education, media, peer groups, and societal norms subtly mold desires, fears, and expectations. The choices we perceive as uniquely ours, the careers we pursue, the lifestyles we adopt, the values we hold, are frequently reflections of collective pressures and inherited narratives. Even rebellion, the supposed assertion of independence, is framed by the cultural environment. The boundaries we resist are themselves socially constructed. Understanding the depth of this influence illuminates the paradox. Freedom is experienced, yet always mediated by the context in which it arises. Narratively, this is evident in countless facets of life. Consider consumer behavior, where subconscious marketing tactics shape preferences before the conscious mind evaluates them. Or political decisions, where framing, social proof, and emotional resonance steer choices that feel autonomous. Even interpersonal relationships are guided by unconscious biases, attachment patterns, and internalized social scripts. The illusion of free will is everywhere, convincing and subtle, shaping the arc of lives while hiding the mechanisms that guide them. Cognitively, awareness of these forces is transformative. By examining the hidden architecture of the mind, one can begin to recognize patterns and biases before they dictate action. Practices such as mindfulness, reflection, and journaling illuminate triggers, habitual reactions, and emotional biases, providing the conscious mind with tools to intervene. This does not restore absolute freedom, but it allows for a more deliberate, informed navigation of life within the constraints that shape every decision. Knowledge of the illusion becomes leverage, the ability to act intentionally despite subconscious currents and social pressures. Philosophically, this realization invites a profound shift in perspective. If autonomy is constrained, meaning is derived not solely from the freedom to choose, but from the quality of awareness and intentionality brought to each action. Existentialists argue that even within these limitations, the human capacity to assign meaning, interpret experience, and act with responsibility remains intact. Nietzsche emphasizes self-overcoming. Awareness of limitation is the first step toward mastery. The illusion of free will, then, is not a defect to despair over, but an opportunity to cultivate insight, discipline, and deliberate engagement with life. Ultimately, the subconscious mechanics of choice illustrate a paradoxical truth. The more we understand the constraints on our decisions, the more power we gain to act intentionally. Awareness of biases, habits, and social conditioning does not grant absolute freedom, but it allows for a conscious shaping of responses, an intervention in the patterns that would otherwise govern us unconsciously. Subscribing ensures continued exploration of these principles, providing insights into navigating the subtle forces that govern choice. The essential question emerges: if much of what you believe is free is in fact shaped, how will you act with the awareness necessary to reclaim agency within these limits? The realization that free will is largely an illusion can feel disorienting. It challenges the comforting belief that each action is entirely self-directed and exposes the hidden forces, biological, psychological, and social, that shape our choices. Yet within this unsettling truth lies an extraordinary opportunity. By understanding the limits of autonomy, we gain the ability to act with deliberate intention, to cultivate self-mastery, and to navigate life with clarity and purpose despite the constraints. True agency is not about absolute freedom. It is about awareness, strategy, and engagement within the structures that shape our decisions. Philosophically, the concept of navigating the illusion aligns with the teachings of both Stoicism and existentialism. The Stoics emphasized that while external circumstances are beyond control, one can exercise mastery over perception, judgment, and action. The existentialists, including Sartre and Camus, argued that meaning emerges not from freedom and abstraction, but from conscious choice within the inevitable constraints of existence. Understanding the illusion of free will reframes the human condition. Limitations are not prisons, but the context within which intentional action becomes meaningful. True power lies in choosing consciously within these boundaries. Psychologically, harnessing the illusion requires both insight and practice. Cognitive behavioral techniques reveal the hidden patterns driving behavior, from emotional biases to habitual reactions. Mindfulness cultivates present-moment awareness, enabling observation of impulses without automatic surrender. Habit formation, structured decision-making, and reflective journaling provide scaffolding for intentional action. While we cannot control every impulse or external influence, we can shape the conditions under which choices are made, steering behavior toward alignment with long-term goals and personal values. Emotionally, acknowledging the illusion fosters humility and resilience. Frustration, guilt, and self-criticism often arise when outcomes fail to align with intent. Recognizing that decisions are influenced by forces beyond conscious control reframes these experiences. They become data, not judgments, and opportunities for learning rather than indictments of character. Emotional intelligence, cultivated through reflection and observation, allows us to navigate the interplay of desire, fear, and habit, making internal turbulence a guide rather than a master. Socially, this awareness transforms interactions. By understanding how social conditioning, norms, and external cues influence both our own choices and those of others, we gain insight into the dynamics of relationships, influence, and collaboration. Decisions can be structured to leverage these forces rather than be unconsciously manipulated by them. Recognizing the limitations of autonomy encourages empathy. We understand that others, like ourselves, act under constraints and unseen influences, and we approach both conflict and cooperation with greater nuance and understanding. Narratively, human experience offers countless illustrations. The individual who structures their environment to reduce distractions, cultivate deliberate habits, and monitor cognitive biases acts with intentionality, even within subconscious constraints. The artist who embraces limitations imposed by medium, culture, or personal skill channels constraints into creative expression. The leader who understands the interplay of psychological and social forces directs action with foresight rather than relying on naive notions of absolute control. In each case, the illusion of free will becomes a tool, a framework within which intentionality can be exercised effectively. Behaviorally, practical strategies for navigating the illusion include designing choice architecture, setting systems that favor deliberate action, and regularly reflecting on motives, patterns, and outcomes. Small, consistent interventions, delaying impulses, questioning assumptions, and analyzing habitual responses compound over time, strengthening the capacity for conscious, intentional action. While absolute freedom remains elusive, the quality of agency is enhanced through awareness, discipline, and strategic engagement with constraints. Ultimately, understanding free will as an experience rather than a fact does not diminish responsibility, it heightens it. Awareness of the forces shaping thought and behavior creates the possibility of acting with deliberation, integrity, and foresight. Subscribing allows continued exploration of these insights, providing guidance on designing environments, cultivating habits, and applying philosophical and psychological principles to live intentionally. The ultimate reflection is unavoidable. If choice is always constrained, how will you wield the awareness necessary to act with purpose, mastery, and authentic agency within the reality of your own limits?